Hello, everybody. Welcome to this lecture in the SOC series, in which we are going to talk about the function co-design architecture approach to SOC design. So let's begin with what is the classical approach. In the classical approach, it was believed that hardware and software can be developed independently and eventually they can be integrated when they are required to perform as a system. Okay, so system is actually partitioned into hardware and software. So this is the system architecture. First, it is the functional level specification. Okay, whenever we are going to specify the requirements, so it is a functional level representation or the modeling. Then there is architectural level modeling. Okay, and then we go in for hardware which is going to be used, and eventually what functions they are going to be originated, or they can be given to software which are independently developed. Okay, and hardware it is independently developed. So it could be said that this classical approach, it is a hardware first approach or a hardware centric approach. And eventually when both the hardware and software they are developed, they are integrated and the complete system it is verified for its functionality, and we realize the system. But the drawback of this is that there is a very little interaction which is occurring between the hardware and the software. Whereas we know that software needs a platform, a hardware to run. Okay, so in many circumstances, lots of problems they were encountered, which actually led to scheduled overruns. Okay, missing deadlines and the costly modifications, because many of the faults they were realized at the integration level, and going back to the design level from that stage it was really going to cost dearly to the design companies. So this called for a better approach with a growing level of complexity coupled with the shrinking time to market and the uh, increased pressure to put more functionality in the smaller designs. It mandated that the RTL design methodology is insufficient. What do I mean by this? It means representing the system from the architecture level to the RTL level, and then partitioning into hardware and software was insufficient. Okay, so this mandated another approach or a different approach design methodology where the system could be, you can say, viewed at a higher level and a higher abstraction level, well above the RTA level. Now, why did we even need that? That was required because there was a lot of complexity. So we could not afford going back and moving through the iterative process of refinements, coming back from the integration and verification stage back to the initial design stage or the model stage. So that was not affordable. So what they wanted is that the involvement of the software and the hardware and their interaction could be evaluated and verified, and their uh, dependency could be understood earlier in the system. Okay, so this gave rise to a design abstraction methodology which is called the ESL design methodology, that is electronic system level design methodology. Now let's first try to understand what is a model, what is abstraction, what is architecture before we actually jump into this. When we talk about a model, it means it is a conceptual view of the system's functionality. Okay, though model can be at a functional level, it can be at the architectural level, it can be at the physical level, or it can be at the computational level. So if we talk about a typical VLSI system, we first have the application in a mind, the specifications in mind. Okay, I need my system to uh, convert this binary into decimal. Let's say I want to design, or I want to perform 64-bit computations. So my functionality is the upper level where I'm going to define. Then we come to the, that is, I'm talking about the hardware centric approach. Then we come to the architectural level where we decide what modules, what blocks or what hardware blocks they are needed to realize or the components they are needed to realize this functionality. Okay. Then comes the logical level. That is what in the terms of relationship between the inputs and outputs that that is needed or required for implementing this architecture. And eventually it goes to gate level and the layout level, and finally the physical level where we are going to talk about the wires, areas, widths, the metal lines and all that things. Okay, so this is the typical flow what we are talking about, and it is actually hardware centric. But with system on chip, that was not very successful. So before we talk about ESN, now what is architecture? Architecture is nothing but an abstract view of the system implementation. That is what we require in the terms of the communication models, in the terms of the blocks for realizing a multiplexer. I need an adder unit. I need the buses. I need the buffers. So what all that is needed, that is when we come to the architecture level. And then we come to abstraction, because abstraction is a very important word when I'm going to go for the modeling and designing. Now, abstraction is the level of the detail which is contained within the model. Okay, so whether I can define my system at the system level, how the complete system is verifying, that is the highest level of abstraction. Then the next is the instruction or the algorithm or the functional level of your system. Next is the RTL level. Then we go down deeper, that is logic or the logic and gate level. And finally, it is the circuit or the schematic level. Okay. So when I talk about abstraction levels, they hold true both for the hardware as well as the software. Till now, whatever we have been talking about the VLSI systems, we always are focused on the hardware. The ASIC design flow, what we have been talking about, that is only talking about your hardware. It is a complete top-down approach where it is only the hardware. We are not involving firmware or the software in it. Okay, but that is not true for the system on chip. For the system on chip, hardware and the software are equally important components, because so many functionality they are actually, or the complex modifications, they are normally shifted to software, so that the process of modification becomes easy. The process of updation it becomes easy. You very well know that let's say you purchase a mobile phone, the mobile model may change, let's say in a 3-4 months once we get a new model from one company, but the software updates they are more frequent. So if they want even to update any security patches, they are putting those things in the software. So when I'm talking about system on chip, it is very important to understand the flow of software also along with. Okay, so whether the software it is defined at the application level, it is defined at in the machine language, or at the microcode level or the pseudo code level, that is very important when we talk about system on chip. Okay, now after understanding this, and after understanding what were the uh, problems we encountered with the classical approach, there was a need for a better approach in which we could see the functionality of hardware and see software at a single platform, at a single level. Okay, when it was required to see at the early stage before actually partitioning them independently. Okay, so that was required, and this approach is called your electronic system level, though different refinements were definitely there and different versions were there, but this is, we are talking about the approach as such. Okay. So it enables the ease of designing the system and exploring its design space with the different alternatives which are available, and then refining it over the time with both hardware and software in going together hand in hand. Okay, so this is a typical flow. So there is a higher level of model. You see, there is a system requirement specification. Definitely, we have to take the input of the specifications from the vendor or the person who desires a system to be built. And then there is a representation of a system level design for both with respect to hardware as well as with respect to the software. Okay. And then we have the hardware design and the software development going hand in hand. Okay. So eventually, so both are communicating over the time, both are being developed in parallel, and both are being represented already at a higher level where the importance of the functionality between hardware and between the software it is well understood. And finally, they are integrated and verified as a system, and then it is implemented. If all things they go fine. So let's try to understand this better. So as I already told you, so it was not viable to make use of the RTL design methods, what we have been talking about, or the hardware centric approaches. So that led to development of approach because there was heterogeneous content. When I say heterogeneous, it means not a same. There is no homogeneity. They are not similar kinds. So lot of functionality, lot of tasks of different type they had to be given to the software and some to the hardware. So somewhere hardware units were required, somewhere it was given to the software part or the maybe compilers. Okay. So the need for that led to the development of your ESL. So there were trade-offs between the hardware and software, and there was a new approach which came that is called the co-design approach. Okay, it is primarily driven by two main criteria, that is the concurrency which is there and the integration. When I talk about concurrency, it means there is a parallelism. We are not first talking about hardware and then putting the left out things to the software. No, we are actually viewing the complete system at a much higher level, maybe at the level of the application, where we are trying to, or maybe at the level of the system, where we are trying to understand the functionality of both hardware and software together. And then their development also goes hand in hand together, where they are communicating at each stage and they are being developed in the parallelly. I should not say independently, they are being developed parallelly. Okay, so let's say if I'm going to develop one unit, one block, the corresponding firmware is also being developed. So that is a machine code which is being developed to run that particular coprocessor. So I may need a coprocessor instruction unit for that. Okay, so that kind of thing. I hope you understand. And finally, it is next important component or the characteristic which defines it is the integration. So integration is the interaction between the hardware and software. So at each level they are interacting, they are communicating with each other. They are not waiting for the final last integration of the complete system to understand and see what are the flaws which are coming. Okay. So at each stage they are communicating and seeing if the hardware it is being supported appropriately by the software and the software it is able to work with a particular hardware unit. Okay, and meet the design and the performance criteria. So this led to a very revolutionary approach, which is called the hardware-software co-design. So software co-design, it refers to the methodology of integrated design of systems implemented using both hardware and software components for a given set of performance goals and an implementation technology. So it helps improve the overall performance, reliability, and the cost effectiveness of the system development. Here the software requirements, they also drive the hardware requirements because software cost, it dominates the hardware cost because much of the hardware cost and the design modifications, they can be controlled through the software. Okay. So to implement this approach, the user requirements are first partitioned into the functional and the non-functional subsets, from which a functional view and an architectural view it is derived. So when I say functional and a non-functional subset, now when I say functional, it means what particular function, if I need to perform logical operations, I want to perform arithmetic operations, so what functionality I'm expecting. And the non-functional subsets is talking about the environment, how much speed I require, okay, to save on the cycles, what is the depth of the pipelining I require, okay. So those that providing that environment to allow that functionality is what constitutes your non-functional subsets, okay. So the subject of computing, so you can say it is built around the computational model, okay, which is splitting the hardware and software functionality at an early stage. So it is trying to understand the role of the hardware and the software early and the level of the application and the level of the system and the level of the specification. Okay, so we are not going deep down till the RTL of to develop the hardware units and then waiting for the software as was done in the classical approach. Rather, early only whenever we receive the specification and we view it as a system, there only the identification is made as to how it is going to be split between the hardware and the software, where we are expecting the hardware and software to share the burden of the computational computations in the system. Okay, so this is a very clear and a simple way to depict what is the classic design approaches and what the co-design approaches. So in this we can see that we are trying to simply partition into two independent paths where hardware is going to be implemented independently and software implemented independently. So it is hardware centric approach. Okay. And in the co-design, there is a lot of time where we are actually viewing the hardware and software together at functional level. And eventually they are going deep down, they are actually split as independent paths. So the path of independent development for hardware and software, that is shortened, but they're together as an integrated development that is emphasized. So this is the typical co-design flow. So in this, first there is the system description, as I told. Whenever the specifications they are received, these specifications, they are normally representing the functional level. Okay, then there is a partitioning between the hardware and the software. So there is a design representation, and Here hardware and software, they are synthesized, and along with them the interface which is required between them, that is being synthesized. So they go in parallel, hardware synthesis and the software synthesis. Okay, and finally they are moving to the system integration. So if any modification is required, they move back to this stage where we have done the hardware and software partitioning. So if I go back to the earlier thing, so we are going back to this point, which is much lower in the design process as compared to the classical approach. So that helps in saving a lot of design effort and cost uh, when any modification is required. So I hope I've been able to make clear the things. So the co-design we have seen, it improves the overall system performance, reliability, and the cost. And it started driving the design industry. Okay. So the important tasks which were there, which we identified in this was system specification has to be there. Then hardware software partitioning has to be there. So at the functional level, we are able to view what is the role of software and what is the role of the hardware. And this is done early at abstraction levels much higher than RTL. And then there is hardware software synthesis, or I can say a co-synthesis approach. So co-simulation and co-synthesis both are integral to this co-design methodology. Okay. So when I talk about co-synthesis, it means that we are trying to generate both the hardware and the software components of the system, and this approach helps in the rapid prototyping. So for example, I would like to take, let's say there is an application specific code. Let's say you are making use of an image processor. You want to develop an image processor which is making use of MATLAB, and MATLAB is containing some application specific code. Okay, so that would first be broken down into C++, then it would be some things they would be given to compiler for the target architecture, or it would be used in a language or converted in a language which could be used for the reconfigurable hardware. Okay, whereas the hardware on the other hand, those components they would be first realized as an FSM or maybe using a hardware description language, and then eventually they would be mapped to the hardware components which are existing, okay, or which are there. Plus there would be, if there is a need of any interface, let's say that may be an RTS or there may be some compilers which are needed. So it means we are going to develop or generate the hardware components and the software components and the interface components all. So co-simulation is another significant part of your co-design process, which allows hardware and software simulation to occur earlier in the design process. So we know simulation is very, very important wherever we talk about verification, at least at the functional level. So if this uh, hardware software co-simulation is occurring early in the design stage, that helps to build the confidence of the design team that we are module by module or step by step we are actually able to attain the objectives in the terms of the functionality, okay, or the performance or the timing. So software and environment with hardware simulation that is being created. Okay, so this is one good timeline which is going to tell you about the ESL design cycle. So in this specification, that is the high level or the functional representation. hardware and software both are being identified together. So this is the time which can be used for design space exploration. Okay. We'll talk about design space exploration in the next lecture, but just to make you understand this thing better, it just means exploring all the feasible options for implementing a system. Now, that is a very crude explanation, but still, as of now, this is what you understand. So, this gives us to explore all the possibilities how we can attain the system functionality, and then we are going to identify the what is hardware and what is software. So on the timeline, they are occurring at the same stage. We are not waiting first for the hardware uh, model to be developed and then deciding the software. Okay. And in parallel, those are being verified side by side. Your software is being verified, and even their integration is being carried out parallelly. Okay, so fixes, if there are any, if there are any in the specification in hardware, the software. So here we are in the all the parallel stages, we are able to interfere or make any modification early in the design process. So this is the representation of the design environment. So this is typically the shaded area shown in the light blue that is going to show the co-design uh, methodology. So first again, it is the same representation, but a little different way. So here your functionality is defined. So the co-design, it includes the design functionality or the functionality to be defined both for the hardware and the software. And then the system level design is broken into hardware, into software, and then hardware is fabricated, software is being coded, and here also they are interacting to the prototyping environment. So when I say this prototyping environment, this includes your co-simulation, your verification, your co-synthesis. Okay, and eventually the complete system is integrated and verified and tested for the performance. So side by side, the cost models are there, which are going to drive, because we have to, whenever we are going to talk about the performance criteria, one of the very important criteria for design metrics, as you have studied in the last few lectures, I think initially, that was one of the design metric is cost also. So the cost models also, they are being used, roped in side by side. So what model has to be employed for implementing, that is also the part of the design environment. So since we are already into an era where the platform-based design methodology is used, so in the terms of the design methodology, this is very interesting and this is very important, because what we are going to study next, that is also has to be understood by this, and what we have studied, that is also being included in this. So we have already done what is platform-based design. So when I say platform-based, it means it is defining the architecture. Okay. So it is reusing that architecture along with your IP blocks. So to use that, when your system it is being partitioned into hardware and software, first its behavior, it is modeled using the models of computation. Now we have talked about the functional models. Okay. Then we know the architectural level modeling which is there. But what is this computational model? The computational model is when we are making use of the computation time which is involved, that how many cycles they would be used for implementing a particular operation. When those things they become important, means it is a computational model, and to implement that in the co-design, we make use of CFSMs, that is co-design finite state machine modeling. Okay, so models of computation, they are used for defining the application and the architecture, that is the platform. It is being defined by the models of architecture. Okay, so this includes your what communication modules are there, what are the interfaces which are used. Okay, then there is behavioral verification to verify the functionality of these models, computational models. Okay, so they are being verified at the functional level. That means your application at the functional level is being verified. And finally, there is a mapping between hardware and the software components. Once this functionality is defined, then we move to the architectural stage. When at the architectural stage, it is again there for both hardware as well as the software. And then there is a iterative process of refinement which may be required before we move into the final implementation. Okay, so this is going to be a repetitive process from architecture to implementation. So number of stages would be there in this phase. So we have understood that co-design process, it has three important components: system specification, hardware software partitioning, and hardware software co-synthesis. Okay, so system specification we all understand, that is understanding the functional requirements. Hardware software partitioning means what are the architectural assumptions, what is the type of processor, what is the interface. So these would be done both based on the computational models and the models of the architecture or the platform which is being reused. Then what are the partitioning objectives? What attributes or parameters are being used? Whether we want to achieve speed, we want to minimize the latency, we want to minimize the size, we want to reduce the cost. So these are the objectives which have to be met, and that is what decides what is going to the hardware and what is going to the software. And it also encompasses partitioning strategies, that is what tools are being used, what techniques are being used. Okay, and eventually it is your co-synthesis. So how we are carrying out that co-synthesis? We are developing the application specific code, we are developing the hardware unit in parallel, and then the interface or the RTOs or the background operating system if it is required, those things. So that development, it goes hand in hand. Okay, so coming to the hardware software partitioning, a little detail into that. It is to decide what tasks should be implemented in hardware and what tasks they have to be implemented in software. Okay, we have to understand, obviously I told you that this is being guided by the partitioning objectives, and also whether that task is easily implemented in hardware with the reduced costs, okay, or in the software. So one example is if the task it interacts closely with the operating system, then obviously it has to be given to the software part. And if it is going to deal with the external signals, it has to be given to the hardware. Okay, so this was just one example. Also, it can be guided by the dynamic properties of the system, the static properties of the task, and the hardware cost. As I told you, these may be the partitioning objectives. Now, what is meant by dynamic properties? The dynamic property means that how the execution time of implementing a task in hardware or in software would be affecting the system performance. Okay. Static properties means dif- this hardware and software partitioning can also be guided by the additional criteria, as I told you, the partitioning objectives. So they may be guided by the dynamic properties, by the static properties, or the hardware cost. When I say dynamic properties of the task, it means how much how the implementation in the hardware or software is going to affect the overall system performance. Okay, whether the system it is going to achieve better uh, performance. When I say performance criteria, it can either be measured in the power or in the terms of the speed. Okay, and the your output also. And static means what is the difference in execution time if it is implemented in hardware or in software. Okay, and last is the cost, that if we are giving it to the hardware, what would be the increase in cost, because implementing and modifying a functionality in software is obviously a better choice, until unless it is very important to use the hardware for it, because it makes the updation, it makes the modification very easy. Though software code development is also a very costly affair for any system, but still it makes the process of